Welcome everyone to week 10 of History 310 Online. We have now completed part 1 of our course and, thematically speaking, now enter the early national period of American history, when the United States of America, rather than the 13 English colonies of England, will be our primary focus. I will continue in the days to come reading, scoring, and providing feedback on your various graded work, including homework assignments and discussion posts. Just as students, you often feel like you're playing catch-up with the work that is assigned, so too for faculty is it a bit similar, as I work to read and evaluate student writing in a reasonable time frame so that you might take advantage of the feedback I provide for upcoming assignments. So as always, I appreciate your patience and waiting for assignments to be graded and comments provided. Now, as we embark upon part 2 of our course, we rejoin the narrative in the period that historians refer to as the early national period, or sometimes just the early republic, a period from roughly 1790 to 1830 or so. And we begin with a lecture this week on the challenges of a young and recently independent nation to define itself, including its politics and economy. Because no matter how united the colonists might have been on behalf of independence, and they were not totally united, we saw that with the ratification of the Constitution, there were still substantial disagreements as to exactly what kind of country the United States would be. Here was an infant nation, after all, with diverse interests and identities among its people, and how those interests and identities would align or not align remained to be seen. Almost immediately, 2 basic strands of American political economy appeared, representing what are sometimes called the Jeffersonian and Hamiltonian camps, after their respective leaders Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. Something like political parties even formed to represent the interests that each camp promoted. The Republicans under Jefferson and the Federalists under Hamilton. Part of what you study this week are the fault lines that defined these competing visions of America, its politics and economy. Keep in mind that even though most of the great political thinkers of the age detested what we call political parties and what they called factions, that's exactly what developed almost immediately, and the politics of the day became hotly competitive and quite bitter. Compare the political tone then to the political tone of our day, and I think you'll be surprised at just how dirty politics could be in America's early national period. You'll also see how laws were passed to punish certain kinds of political disloyalty and political behavior, a trend that seemingly ran against the grain of the freedoms promised in the Bill of Rights, including freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Ultimately, they had to reconcile, just as we do, the wish for nationalism and unity on the one hand, with the desire for civil liberties and the right to dissent from government on the other. We'll then move on to the War of 1812 and study how that conflict became a pivotal point in the development of American national identity. Remember, though we tend to take that for granted today, namely that we identify ourselves as Americans, that there was virtually no tradition of this in the colonial history of our country. Americans of that age tended not to identify themselves as Americans, but rather as New Yorkers or Pennsylvanians or Virginians, that is, in line with their local interests. The framers of our Constitution said it was, quote, in order to form a more perfect union that the Constitution was written. But the writing of that document did not by itself create a national identity among the people. So the development of a true national identity is added to the list of challenges faced by the young nation, and is one that would continue to bedevil the nation right on down to the Civil War. Speaking of bedevilment, the institution of slavery will greatly expand in this era, right along with the territorial expansion of the nation. In fact, in recent years, historians have argued persuasively that the growth and economic modernization of the country was driven by the expansion of slavery and the cash crop cotton economy that rested on it. The story of American nation building, in other words, is inseparable from the story of American slavery. the tragic story of slavery will play an important part in the American history we study over the remainder of the course. So lots of critical history to study from this important period of American history known as the early national period or early republic. As always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. We have just about 6 weeks to go in our semester. On our historical journey, it will pass through some of the most formative and momentous periods in American history. I look forward to sharing that journey with you.